we're here at the EMBO meeting on cell biology and climate resilience in Lisbon. And I'm really excited to have here for this discussion Alan Dangour, who's the Director of Climate and Health at the Wellcome Trust, and Giulio Superti-Furga, who is the Director of the Center for Molecular Medicine in Austria. And we're just going to start off just by asking both of you what brought you to this meeting. We're very grateful you came. What brought you?
Well, delighted to be here. Thank you very much. I think we're at a pivotal time at the moment at the intersection of climate change and human health. We're increasingly aware of the really enormous impacts that climate change is having already on human health, whether it's because of extreme weather events, whether it's because of our changing ability to grow crops, or the impacts on mental health, or the spread of infectious diseases. We're seeing these impacts in real time. And there is a large community already engaged in this area, a scientific community, funding community, some policy stakeholders. There is a growing community. But I suppose the reason I'm here is because, that community is doing what it can, but it's not enough. And the scale of the crisis is going to be so large that we need to engage all forms of science, all different disciplines, bring in innovation, bring in experimentation that we've never seen before. And that requires reaching different audiences, talking to cell biologists, talking to immunologists, talking to structural synthetic biologists, people who typically I wouldn't talk to about these issues because we're talking at very different scales, cell biology versus climate change. But actually there are so many opportunities, and I think this meeting has demonstrated where there are opportunities for synergy, for integration, for collaboration, for experimentation in new ways to identify the solutions we really will need.
Thank you.
Well, I am the incredible privilege of having to imagine a new research institute in Sicily. So while I'm still the director of the Center for Molecular Medicine in Vienna, I have to imagine this new institute in Sicily, and it's going to be a medically oriented research, but to make it really interesting, it has to be modern and up to date in 10, 15 years from now. And it's impossible not to think about human health as contextualized with the environment. Human health without the environmental health doesn't quite work. And of course, if we think about nutrition, if we think about pollution, if we think about infections, we are learning that even diseases where we're not considering infectious diseases may have an infectious component, to say nothing about the now very clear role of the microbiome. And so being able to come to a meeting where the environment is put under the light of the climate change being, to me, a great perturber of the environment, and therefore a revealing force of the importance of the environment on human health, is just a fantastic opportunity. I'm having a wonderful time.
Yeah, that's really great. And also, I think it's maybe worth mentioning that I think a theme that has really surfaced at the meeting is that it simply doesn't make sense either from a public communication perspective or a scientific perspective to try to disentangle climate and health. And I think this is already reflected in your organizational structures. So that's really cool. How do you feel about this tension between sort of fundamental research, and in this meeting it's more in a cellular context, but this applies generally, and these really pressing challenges? So how would you support as a research organization and as a funder both, or do you think that actually it's time to switch emphasis? Thoughts on this?
Well, welcome. We have a very much a two-pronged approach here. We recognize, welcome, we have these two bits of the building now, two parts of our strategy. We have the discovery piece and we have the solutions piece. And I'm very privileged to run to one of the solutions areas, which is on climate and health, and the others are on infectious disease and mental health. And that's where we're trying to understand the science and deliver solutions. So whether they're new treatments or new diagnostics or policy change, those are seen as the solutions. But a lot of those solutions come from the fundamental science, the underpinning fundamental biology, which is often being produced by the discovery side. And therefore we have this twin track approach where we have one track which says, fundamental basic biology is critical, and continuing to support that at scale in the way that Wellcome does is core to our mission. But we recognize that we may not know the outcome of that research, and that research may or may not be useful in 10, 20, 30 years' time. And that's a bet we're willing to take. That's a way of funding we will continue to do, because it says that basic biology, that core knowledge, that core generation of new knowledge is critical to moving science forward, whether or not we know exactly what it's for at today.
Yeah,
but we use that knowledge to help shape what then comes out at the other end through the solutions. So there's a clear pathway from discoveries into solutions. And then the solutions areas also opens up new, hey, we don't know how to do this. And then that feeds back into discovery. So there's that really, really important two, and we fund both. One is a much longer term with a uncertain knowledge, uncertain what we're really going to do with that science, and the other one is much more directed at impact.
Yeah, that's wonderful that it's encoded in the institution. Do you bring your two communities together?
Well, this is a really good example. So this is a meeting where Michael Dunn, the director of Discovery, and I and Monica from here said, let's get together and let's plan how we can bring the cell biologists together with the climate and health people. And I think we've seen today, over the last couple of days, really good examples of where that basic science is really going to be fundamentally important in identifying the solutions that we will need.
Thank you. Giulio,
Well, my answer is similar, but at a much smaller scale, obviously. I mean, we are just the institute will be 600 people, 600 researchers.
Not
maybe
so
a bit
small.
More. Not so small, but and so it's the answer is similar to Alan's. I mean, we will need to be able to, let's say, make some of the wonderful recent insights into precision medicine accessible and useful. We have a strong relationship with two hospitals, one that is existing, one is in the making, and that is a fantastic opportunity. At the same time, we need to launch some satellite into the future and try to invest in what we believe is going to be interesting, but we may get it part of the time or none of the time. And my job is really also to convince the medical community that I refer to be tolerant of the fact that some of the effort needs to be an investment into the future. I am a little bit fortified in the possibility in knowing that it is feasible through artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence has shown that you can contextualize things that were a little bit obscure until recently, such as pollution. We can do it better and better. So I am confident that also things that are a little bit more global or environmental will be interpretable for medical purpose probably quicker and better than we were imagining even only a few years ago.
Wonderful, thank you. So perhaps based on the conversations of the last 2 days, but perhaps in general thoughts you brought to the meeting. So are there specific subdisciplines, areas where cell biology can really contribute more than others?
Certainly. I mean, I think in the solutions piece, we understand that climate change is going to have a huge impact, or is already having a huge impact on human health. So what do we do about it? So there's two things we must desperately do. One of them is mitigate. So that means reduce greenhouse gas emissions to slow the rise of global temperatures. And the other one is adapt. So on the mitigate piece, we need these things. We need cement, we need steel, we need different products. But there are ways to do them that we're currently producing these things, and which are huge carbon-intensive activities. And there are ways to use new technologies and new approaches to reduce those. So an example would be fertilizers. So fertilizers currently is a hugely carbon-intensive activity to produce fertilizers, but there are ways to produce biofertilizers, which are based on cell biology and microbes, which will enable us to significantly reduce the emissions associated with agricultural fertilizers. So that's an example of how we can mitigate. And then on the adaptation side, we know that it's becoming virtually impossible to grow crops in some parts of the world because it's so dry, because it's or because it's so hot. And there's a huge effort underway from several of the funders here and lots of the researchers here to create new species, new crop varieties rather, which are able to cope in the new reality of climate. So I think, but that requires the sorts of biology that's being talked about here. It's not epidemiology, it's not population health, it's cellular biology, it's understanding genomes, it's understanding microbes, it's understanding that fundamental part of biology to enable these new solutions to be delivered. And I think that, because what we're saying to the community, the cell biology community, is we need your help. We currently can't deliver solutions because we don't understand this biology. Can you help us? Can you use your genius, your expertise, your brilliance, your creativity and innovation in the lab to help us find some solutions that are going to be globally useful? And can I just raise one other point? You raised it as well about equity. So as we develop these ideas and as we think this through, it's absolutely critical that we have health equity and science equity probably at the core here, because it will not be acceptable. And we at Wellcome are clear about this, and we have a very clear mandate on health equity and science equity, that it's no longer acceptable that high income institutions and high income countries are the holders of all this knowledge and all of this expertise, and if you're lucky, we'll share it. That's absolutely not acceptable. And so we're really embedding health equity and science equity in our work, so to ensure that we support groups around the world to develop ideas, more diverse ideas, more inclusive in the way we fund, to really ensure that the benefits are felt by everyone around the world.
Again, we are operating at a different scale, but I'm totally agreeing and inspired by what Ellen says. For us, the importance of this community is really the example of how you can engineer solutions. And if I consider, I'm a molecular biologist, the generation of my mentors were the ones that have maybe made, let's say, a part list, an index of all the genes, all the proteins, all the different molecules. Maybe my generation has been the one that has been trying to understand how they work together, molecular machines, networks, interactions. The next generation, and I think is represented strongly at this meeting, is the one that is going to do something about it by engineering using the knowledge and the parts. And I think that is what we see as a great future, the ability of using bioengineering, synthetic biology, but we are looking for better names for what will have to be a new kind of medicine that is going to be more preventative. It has to be more protective. Somehow engineering a kind of resilience in the human system, in the ecological system, but also in the human body, from vaccines to whatever cell therapy will be, so that we are able to cope with the climate change and the environmental challenge that will come along. From a nutritional point of view, from, of course, an infection point of view, which is the one that we think is going to be quite dramatic, but also from a pollution point of view. I mean, we see in this microplastic, we see more and more molecules that are now playing a role that we were not even imagining not too long ago. And these are just the most, if you want, banal levels. Then, of course, we are talking about mental health and all the things that are much more subtle or maybe less subtle, but not easily graspable yet, that will also become interesting and available. And also there, we think that we need to be inventive and creative in seeing how we can engineer more resilient. So this meeting is great because it's a meeting of doers. It's a meeting of people that actually are engineering solutions.
Wonderful. And I think that would be a perfect place to also just end on the question of what you think are some concrete outcomes that we should work towards to take away from the meeting.
Should I start?
You should.
So it's a wonderful discussion, and I love this community because of its diversity, and I'm meeting fantastic people. I think that to clarify some of the goals would be very useful. To say if this community, and of course we cannot exclude people that are not here, but just based on all the wisdom that we can fathom together, what would be the kind of goals that we can set? Not incredibly difficult goals, sort of very ambitious but still reachable goals that will help us, and at the same time trying to create a spirit of collaboration that I think Ellen has been already talking about, which is essential for everything. I mean, the days where we would be able to partition science and people and countries are over. I mean, it's too urgent, the opportunities are too many, it is more sustainable and more efficient to work together. So I think the young people don't even understand the old academic system anymore. They're looking for other ways of also managing their development, because even the word career is a wrong word. So all of these things would be very nice to clarify. And so how to work together and what are the great questions.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and I would add, so coming from the funders' perspective, I mean, this meeting has been really rather unique from my perspective in that, 70 or 80 people in the room, but there were 15 funders in the room. And that's, governmental, but also, philanthropic. And that's quite unusual to have that. I think that demonstrates the interest that the funder community has in these intersections. Number one, the interest that the funder community now increasingly has in climate change, but number two, that there's an enormous body of excellence at the cell biology, at the sort of fundamental biology level, that can be tapped and can be used and can be directed. So towards finding solutions for climate change. So I suppose the question is, how do you incentivize? How do you tap that? How do you tap that expertise? How do you bring the next generation in a way that, exactly as Giulio says, is not the old academic model? I mean, speaking as a former professor myself, that model is dead because it doesn't. It's not fit for purpose. So what you need now is you need academics who are able to move, able to be agile, but also able to cross disciplines, work with in larger teams. Yep. So this idea of a single PI with a single topic, and they're going to work on that topic for the whole of their life, and they're going to write a whole load of papers that get smaller and smaller and smaller. That model has got to go, because it's not going to have. We've got these enormous existential questions that require teams of scientists to come together, and that requires that we train the current and next future generations of scientists in a different way. And they're actually asking for it. They don't want to be single discipline experts anymore. They want to engage across. How can I use my skills to help you? How can we work together to answer this question?
And it is more fun.
It's so much more fun. And so I think that incentivizing that, mm-hmm. and that's certainly something at Wellcome, but many other funders increasingly do, is we demand interdisciplinarity or transdisciplinarity, bringing together ideas, bringing together in a new way to create these solutions we really need. So I'm sure that we will, one of the outcomes of this meeting will be that we will meet again. But we will meet again, not just let's meet again because it's quite good fun, but let's meet again with between now and then, let's have done something. So next time we meet, let's put on the table, as a result of this meeting, what did we achieve? What have we achieved? Where are we now? What funding streams are now available? So that's a job for us as funders, but also what have these communities that we're now building here, what have they achieved as a result of this meeting? And I think demonstrating that roadmap, but also thinking about a roadmap to the future. What do we need to get to there? When will we know we have achieved something?
And if I may add, also a narrative on what to tell, what are we trying to do? And that is very, very important. I think we are at a time where being able to represent that these advancements in technology are really for the prosperity of humans and the planet is very, very important, because people are confused. There are a lot of people that are actually skeptical about scientists, although scientists still have the respect of a lot of people. They are not sort of perceived as being the real problem solvers. Sometimes they are creating the problem, or so people think. And so we need also to build an intelligent narrative that tells the story that we think is going to be also the fundament for our own motivation, to say that is what we're trying to do together.
Wonderful. That was really great. Thank you, Alan, and thank you, Giulio, for your time and insights. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed listening to this conversation. Please stay tuned for more content from the workshop.